right. Okay, as promised, studio tour workflow video. Here we go. So first, we'll do kind of an overview of what I got, how it's connected, how it's synchronized, and then we'll go into workflow, and then we'll go into some sound stuff. And yeah, I'll try not to make it as long as the first one I made last year. If you want to see that one, you can check out the YouTube. It's there. So, okay. So we'll start from the end and work our way to the desk. So basically, I got a lot of shit, a lot of hardware. I like hardware just because it's more inspiring to work with. I like tactile stuff to touch. Working in the DAW is cool too, but I prefer this. And I usually record everything with hardware. I do use stuff in the DAW, but I tend to get my ideas out quicker this way. So, okay, so starting with this side, we have a Korg MS-20 Mini in white. I got a good deal on it because of a small cosmetic injury that it sustained. Anyway, it's pretty beefy. I have that actually going through the mixer, but I have an insert for the fuzz. So I got that idea from a dude out in California named Monster Hands. Shout out to that dude. I still do this. It's fucking awesome. So then above that, I have the Pro 1 clone from Behringer. I've had that for a while. I don't think I'll ever get rid of it. This is a MIDI through box. I'll go more on that when it comes to synchronization. Arturia Microfreak. I use that mainly for leads. I know you've probably heard that patch that I use way too often, but it's fucking awesome. The Soundcraft Efx 8 mixer used to be my main mixer. I have another one now. I'm using this for kind of as a sub mix. I probably will be doing some drums when I get that in the studio, but for now it's here. Like I said, the Behringer, it's a cheap fuzz. Highly recommend it. I have my pedal board going right here. I have another insert using the tensor, which is like this cool tape. It's really freaky, but I can go into pedals in a different video, but this is just kind of the overlay. Canyon delay that's modded. Boss Tr2 Tremolo, pretty straightforward. Tube Screamer, straightforward. I use this guy as an auto panner just because it's stereo. This is a really cool pitch shifting delay. It's kind of a little bit expensive nowadays. I got a good deal on it, but it's pretty sick for being pretty old. Then this reverb pretty much is just like this Strymon, but just a little less expensive, and I don't know, I think it's just better. So keep going. Korg NTS1. I'm basically using as an effects processor for the Voca drum, but I do have it on a separate MIDI channel if I want to use the actual oscillator on it. So I've had the Keystep Pro for a while. I got a really good deal on a used one recently, so now I have two. That may seem like overkill, but before I was having to share a lot of tracks on different, so like I would have two synths going on the same track, and that's fine, but now I can have pretty much everything. The only thing that's shared is the MS-20 and Pro one, just because I always have them pretty much going at the same time. So two of those. I use this for just quick Instagram videos where I don't feel like spending a lot of time in post and doing all that synchronization with audio and video. It's cool because it sounds better, but honestly, since it's Instagram, I don't really take that much time. It's just nobody has time these days. So moving forward, I have a Korg Voca drum. Not much to say about it, but a really cool digital drum machine. And synth, really. Korg Voca keys. It's probably one of my favorite synths, really. I know it's like cheap and a lot of people hate it a lot, but I love it for bass. It's just a really solid one. It was the first three that they made. Had the Voca FM and sold it recently. I don't plan on getting the new one. I just didn't use FM as much, mainly because if I need to use it, I have Dext in the DAW, which is, it's got more polyphony, which I find I need to use more polyphony for FM stuff rather than this one, because 3 notes of polyphony is fine for this guy. So I do love the boutiques, obviously. So I have the Roland Sh-01, which is the clone of the 101. Have the newer JX-08, great for poly. So much polyphony for it. It's digital, but I don't know. I don't really care. I'm not a purist. I've never played the original, so I like this one. First boutique I got, which is the Roland Do5. Highly recommend this one. The only problem with it is if you want to program something like on the hardware, I mean, good luck. This takes, and if you like menu diving. So you can get online editors, and you can use like an iPad, and that's great too if you want to program. But I bought the D-Tronics DT-01, which is basically it's a programmer, but I use it more for live instances, just because when you send the program changes to this, it doesn't show it what you're doing. So if you know this well, it's good and fine. I programmed a little bit on it, but honestly, there's so many patches out there. The ones that I got, I'll spend me a lifetime to go through them all. But yeah, I use this mainly. I use this mainly for performing live, actually. So above that, the JD-08, which is the newer Roland Boutique, which is the clone of the JD-800. Great thing. I mean, it's kind of a shame because the real keyboard is so large and has just great sliders. I forget how many what their throw is, but I mean, this is tiny. Then again, I don't have big hands, so this really doesn't bother me. Programming on it is a little finicky at first, but honestly, it doesn't bother me. So moving on, this is my main drum machine, which is basically a sample back player. It's not a sampler. It's just the Electron model samples. It's been out for a while. A lot of people know it. I am probably not going to make the jump to the Digitech anytime soon, just because I'm happy with this and my looper, and it's pretty much more than I need, or it suffices what I need. I do have it on this really cheap IKEA stand that I found moves around a lot. I did have it flat initially, but I put Velcro strips, so now it does not go anywhere. And so probably the main important piece, the biggest important piece of gear that I have is this mixer that I got recently used. It's Soundcraft Signature 12 multi-track. So this is basically what I'm using to track all my stuff in the DAW when I want to do that. And it does that through USB. I also have, I'll get to the audio stuff later, but I have pretty much everything connected to it, including that mixer. And yeah, so that's pretty much all on this side. The desk is the desk. I use some very old KRK Rocket 5s. They're fine. As far as my controller for the DAW, it's a Keystep 37. I use a MacBook Pro. I use a really shitty old Samsung monitor. I don't even know how old it is, but it's not even HD. But it works fine. And then over here, my interface for my audio interface is the Euphoria Behringer 4N HD. It's fine. I mean, I'm not a purist. I'm not a mix engineer. I'm not a master. So for what I do, it works just fine. And then I have the Boss RC505 looper. I have some other odds and ends and stuff like that, but that's mainly all of the gear for pretty much I don't plan on changing the setup for a while. One thing that I did notice that is kind of something to get used to is my apartment was really small, which essentially, like, in theory sucks because you don't have a lot of room and you're really cramped. However, I did notice over time in playing that I could reach everything and not have to move around, whereas I have to move around a lot. So I tried to keep things organized in a way where, like this is kind of like the mono synth section. This is like the poly section. Drum machines are both over here. These two are right next to each other because if you want to transpose all the tracks at the same time, you can do that with two hands. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I have it's a little bit messy right now, but drums are going to go over here eventually. Two guitars, just a Fender, I think it's a Mexican Strat, nothing special. That is a 1977, oh man, I forget, it's from Spain, Barcelona. It's a Antonio de Torres Cordoba, which is apparently it's a student guitar, but it sounds great. I guess mainly because it's old, but yeah. Record player, it's modern. Buddy from Japan, Mike, sent me this guy for free, so shout out to that guy. I've only messed with it a little bit just because I know once I do start getting into like tape loops and stuff like that, I tend to get obsessed with like new things. So eventually, once I get my album done, it would be cool to experiment and put it on tape. So maybe I'll do that. I use some flags and like a poncho to kind of hide the chord madness behind here. I'm not the best at cable management, but I mean, it works. I don't trip on anything. I mean, this is the only kind of hazard that I have, but I put bubble wrap on it so I don't fuck up my legs. So yeah, that is essentially all the gear. So next, we can move on to audio, and then we can get on to MIDI and synchronization and then get some examples. So the way audio works is everything over here is connected to this mixer that has 2-channel mix out, goes into the first 2 channels of that mixer, which is the multi-track mixer, and then goes into the DAW, or here if I want. It really just depends on my workflows, but basically everything's labeled. So the MS-20 is here, the Pro 1, the Freak, and the drums. So I can do sound examples while I'm at it. So the Pro 1, that has the distortion on. I'm not using that via insert. The Pro 1, I mainly use this one for kind of pluckier sounds because this will take care of the low end. This will have the low mids to mids or highs if I wanted. It really just depends on the sound that I'm going for. And then the Arturia Microfreak. And this preset is Argon Lead. It's a Arturia preset, and I think it's the best one. I overuse it for everything just because it cuts through the mix and it sounds awesome. It has aftertouch, which I love. And yeah, if you have a Microfreak and if you have a computer, get that preset. It's awesome. But yeah, another thing that I'll add is I have all the pedals except these two going through the coming out of the auxiliary out one into the stereo return, so I can use all the effects on here by just turning up the aux right here and then the level right here. This also has effects on it from Lexicon, which are nice. I mainly just use the gated reverb, if anything. But yeah, it's great. I haven't put drums through it yet, but I will once I set it up because I have 5 open channels plus a stereo. So, I mean, if I'm going to multi-track drums, I'm going to use that mixer. But if I just want to jam along to something, I'm probably just going to have it hooked up all the time to this, and it's going to go over there in that corner. But yeah, so that's this stuff. So from there, all of these guys get piped in to this mixer. Now, I'll say this mixer has a lot of advantages and a few disadvantages, but the reason why I got it is because I did not like when I'm doing the album, when I first started, I would basically have one synth at a time hooked up to this. Or not necessarily that way. I would have them all hooked up to that, have the 2-channel mix out, so I don't have to just plug anything in and out. I would just have to mute everything that I'm not using and then just one thing. And honestly, that took too long for me. I don't work that fast. So I found out through a friend of mine that this will multi-track. So I often will write my stuff and then play it live. And I'll do this levels right then and there, and then I'll do very little in post. Whereas for an album, that is cool, but if you want something to sound really good, to be mixed, mastered, and stuff like that, it's better to have each individual track, and then you can tweak to your heart's content, which I don't do too much of just because, I'm just doing this for fun. I'm not trying to make any money, at least not yet. But essentially, everything else, so the right and left mixer from that is going in here. The mic that I'm talking on is on this channel, and then the rest of the stuff that's hooked up over here. It's got a couple of outputs, which is nice. I'm also using the looper, and I'll get to like why I have it set up that way, but I have the looper's output going into here just so you can hear it. It's not good to do that just because I also, when I get to the looper, I don't have it hooked up this way, and I'll explain why. But basically, that's how it works. All of the audio is being piped in right now into Logic, being recorded, so I can mess with the stuff later in post. Basically, what's going on right now is you're hearing my voice, and then I have everything hooked up right now that's being recorded. This has also effects on it, and you can use an auxiliary, like you can basically have the same setup, but you have to use one of the channels. It doesn't have like a dedicated effects return like that one does. But so the main outputs are going to the monitor. I don't have those on currently just because if I did, you would pick it up on this microphone, and that would be bad. You get I forget what they call it, like a loop, a sound loop, or not a ground loop, but a loop, and it would just feed back and be bad. So, and you don't see, I put these all down. The audio is being tracked via USB and not output that way. So I also have I have two outputs coming from here into RC505. So why do I do that? Because if I want to loop any of my gear into a jam and then use them to fade in and out over here and not have to go all the way over here, if I'm just working in this corner, I can do it that way. The output of it going right now from the looper is going back to the same channel. I'm sharing the channel with my microphone. It's not something you normally want to do, but I'm doing that just so you can hear it for this video. Normally, I have it just piped into the Go Mixer Pro for instant quick live jams. And the audio, so if I want to take audio from the DAW, like a drum loop that I got from there, or software synth, whatever I want to do, I have audio coming from this interface from XLR to 1/8 inch in here on the auxiliary. So I can pretty much loop anything that I want to do. Now, normally, these two cables have the right and left coming out and then going in here with this one. These two are coming from this mixer on the auxiliary 1 and out, and you can add the levels right here. Why do I do that? So, because of flexibility, and sometimes I don't want to use the looper. Sometimes I don't want to use the DAW. I just want to use what's over here and back. And I can do that by just using these two outs. Sometimes I don't want to use headphones because I have to use headphones for this. I mean, it has a monitor out, but I mainly use it. So if I use this primarily if I don't want to make a lot of loud noise with those. If I want to use those, I can just use this. I believe this has a headphone out. So if I wanted to, I could plug the headphones in here and then just use the outputs from here. So again, flexibility. And that's pretty much audio. Sometimes I will use this, like I'll plug a guitar directly in. I could use it that way. I could plug in the guitar here. One last thing as far as audio, I do have a condenser mic that you can hear right here. And what's cool is the loop, and I'll show you in the last example. So this is a tabletop looper. I was used to the foot-controlled loopers. So you can't control this with a foot switch, which is down here. that's plugged in via TRS, so it sends and receives. This is the record stop, and then this is the clear. So, and that one's dedicated to this channel. So, I mean, you can the MIDI implementation as far as like what it can control is a lot, but for like if I'm just playing acoustic guitar and I want to loop it, or electric, and play and not have, have to do it with my hands, I could do it with my foot. We are going to do MIDI and synchronization. So essentially everything is hooked up via DIN 5-pin MIDI and not USB MIDI. The reason why is because not all of this stuff can be connected via USB, like the Volcas. Pretty much everything else can, but I decided when I first started that I liked 5-pin. It's just easier that way. I mean, there's a reason why MIDI is still in its 1.0 phase. I mean, they've come a little bit away as far as evolving MIDI for like Bluetooth, but I mean, they invented it back in the 80s, and the wheel has not broken. So that just goes to show why I like it. It's stable. It rarely screws up. There's a little bit of latency when you like kind of, same thing with audio, when your cable's super long and you're controlling a lot of stuff through throughs, you can get some latency, but you can correct that if you need to. But anyway, so the way I usually have it set up is this is the master clock. So normally, I don't have it hooked up right now because I want to show that I can control everything from here via MIDI, which I'll do in a second. But normally, this is just sending clock. This can only send clock. It cannot send MIDI notes as far as like stuff on the scale. That's one of the pitfalls of this thing, but honestly, it really doesn't bother me that bad. So what I normally do is have the MIDI out coming here, going into the first Keystep Pro. These the two Keystep Pros are all labeled, so because when I had one, it was a bit, I kind of just knew exactly what was on what. But because I have everything split out a little bit more, I labeled everything, as you can see here, with the channels, the ins and outs, same thing here. And pretty much every track has its own synth except for this one, just because I always play the MS-20 and the Pro 1 pretty much always on the same channels just because they're mono synths. And yeah, I mean, they typically do that, so I just kept them on. It used to be I would put polys on polys, paraphonics on paraphonics, but this is the way I have it set up. So first, it comes in and gives it clock or information, depending on what I'm doing. And from there, it's split out two ways. The first goes to a through box that's right here that you can't see, and it's piping in MIDI to this one, which then goes to here, this one, and then, yeah, and then also the NTS1. Only the NTS1 is getting MIDI from a through right here because I ran out. Because this MIDI through box that you can't see is a 1 in, 4 out, and then 3 go right here, and then the last one goes right here, which is just clock. And then from there, this can be an out or a through. The reason why I have it as a through is because if I want to send MIDI information from the DAW, it can go all the way down here via this path. So from there, it goes to the second one, which is getting clock and information if I wanted to. And the same thing, each one has its own label. From there, it's split out two different ways. The first is I have one going here because normally, or ideally, I would like to have all of this controlled by right here so I don't have to reach for it or anything like that. So if I'm playing this keyboard, I could tweak it right here and vice versa. So the only exceptions to that are the Sh-01 and the vocal keys, which are right here. But it's, I mean, I could still reach them. And the only reason why I didn't put the big through box over here is because there was no room for it. It would have been a more cluttered mess. And again, these only have 4 channels, so I found that this is the best way to organize it. Granted, I've only been doing this setup for about a month and a half, so I could change, but that's the way I have it right now. So this also takes, you can clock it via MIDI, but and also control each drum tracks with the drum track. But I've learned that it's kind of complicated because it'll send MIDI notes to other channels. And yeah, so I don't really have it set up that way. I just use the sync in from here from the out, which is just sending clock, and it works fine. So from here, the second out, I kind of got distracted. So the second out will go to the through box right here, which is sending MIDI. So this is a 1N 12 out. This was my main and only one that I was using for a while, and it had everything connected up. And it worked fine when I had my small setup, or my apartment setup, which was more compact. But since I have two different kind of things going on here, I put this over here just because it's bigger, I had more space, and yeah, so that's getting, the Pro 1's getting that, the Sh-01A is getting that, the MS-20 is getting that, and then the last thing is the, I'm not really sure what this one is, but, the Freak. So yeah, so that's kind of how it's set up, and basically, if I don't want this to be master clock, and this to be master clock, I can do that. I can send MIDI clock from the DAW, comes out of here, into here, and then out, and then goes down the chain. The only problem with that is it will not send MIDI note information. Now, if I want MIDI note information, which I currently have set up right now, is MIDI out from here, and then going straight into the first key step, and then all the way down. So an example of that is that I can control everything. So my template is set up as such. All these are the audio tracks. All these are the MIDI tracks. So, and I can just click on a MIDI channel, right? This one's the SH. So if I press this, I'm getting MIDI information from the SH. And then all the way down, so the Pro 1 and the MS. And then the Microfreak. This is also Aftertouch, which is awesome. I use Aftertouch a lot. Not everything supports it on this, but that's why I like these controllers, because they're mini keys, but I don't have the biggest hand. So, and I'm not really a keyboard player per se. I can play the sequencer, but I cannot really play like a pro. So this will suffice for me. Moving on, the JD08. The Volca keys. The D05. And then the JD08, or excuse me, the JX08. So yeah, that's kind of it. And then also in here I have Omnisphere going. So I do use some VSTs, and then I like Omnisphere because it's expensive, I know, but it's got legacy sounds from video games that I hold dear to my heart, like Silent Hill. So this is a Silent Hill sample. Actually, is this recording? Yeah. So, and it's got tons of sounds. I love video game music. It's kind of the older video games. I started playing video games like in the mid to late 90s, and then kind of stopped in the early kind of late 2000s, teens. And yeah, that's pretty much it as far as everything goes. So if you have questions or anything like that, just let me know. I'm going to close this one out with having everything pretty much playing stuff at the same time. And then, yeah, that's pretty much what we got.